Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Art of Slowing Down podcast. It is your host here, Analena. And today, I almost cannot believe it to tell you that this is the very last episode of 2023. I literally think that the year went by just like that, right? And I decided that I wanted to share with you today what my year was like as a manifesting generator and what especially my business success looked like, because I know so often my stories is what helps my listeners the most to also tune in to what may work for them. And I also want to say, obviously, I'm a manifesting generator, but even if you are a projector, a manifestor, reflector, or generator, I think a lot of the things that I will be sharing today will be super applicable for you as well. And yeah, there's some things that are going to be specifically for many gens. But if you know me, I'm very actually detached by now from the types, because in the gene keys that I also talk a lot about, we actually don't have the 5 types anymore. I think that's a beautiful thing. And I always want to remind you that the types are not for us to identify with too much. It's more like a loose guidance that can help us a lot. So let's dive in. I'm going to have a peek here and there at my notes because I have an undefined head in Ajna and sometimes I go blank. So I did take some notes previously. So, one of the first things that I can say really contributed a lot to having success in my business. And also, when I say success, this is about feeling good, where I feel like, wow, I'm really building this solid foundation. I enjoy what I'm doing. And is something that is building a future for myself, for my family, and all of that. And obviously, also money plays a big role with that. I'm going to talk a little bit more about money in the episode as well. So, the first thing is actually consistency. And I have done other episodes about this. They are usually super popular because, especially for manifesting generators, I think consistency is kind of a thing and it often triggers people, because oftentimes we have this notion that consistency is about showing up every single day, you know? But that doesn't have to be the case. So, what does consistency look like for me in my business? So, the first thing is this podcast here. I have been showing up every week and I have been doing it for almost 2 years now, and I have been really enjoying it. And obviously, there have been times where I didn't feel like it, or things kind of slowed down. And I have learned that it's normal. Like, we humans, and in human design, especially for generators and manifesting generators, we talk about this plateau, but this really applies also for all human design types. And just like nature, we have these seasons. Now we have phases where we feel like, oh my God, this is amazing. This is so much fun. And then we have phases where everything is a little bit blah and slow and maybe doesn't go the way you want it to be, or you're not as excited. So don't think that you always have to be super duper 100% excited about everything. That would be more like a machine, and we are not machines, we are humans. So that is the one thing with the podcast. And I think I have mentioned this before. It's almost like I created accountability and consistency for myself when I committed to it. And obviously, with a podcast, this is something you only want to do if you have this feeling in your body, like, oh, yeah, there's something there. And actually, I'm going to share this right now because I'm talking about podcast, even though I wanted to share it later on. We're going to start the year actually with an amazing program. It's going to be it's called Easy Podcast Launch. You're going to find all the details below the episode. I'm going to share more about it. We're going to start on January 25th when we have a beautiful full moon in Leo, which is all about being in the spotlight, speaking your truth unapologetically. So, this is going to be a 3-month program where I'm guiding you into launching a podcast yourself the easy way. And obviously, we're going to talk about human design and gene keys. I'm going to share you all my tips and tricks. We're even going to go into some of the tech stuff, but really in a way to keep it simple and easy. So if you're interested in that, and if you have been feeling the pull, because I had many, many people ask me about it over and over again, and my cycle was like, yeah, I'm going to finally do it. So it's here now. The invitation is there. And yeah, so that's that. And this would be something that really creates consistency and stability for you in your business when it comes to showing up. And showing up is so important. Again, you don't have to show up every day. And the way that I have chosen this podcast is I'm showing up once a week. And maybe that's going to change over time. When I initially started, I only wanted to show up every other week because I didn't want to overcommit, because I can have a tendency to overgive, right? But then it happened that it just happened to be every week. And I know some people that publish episodes more often. That's also for you to find your own jam with that if you want to do your own podcast. Now, what else? Consistency. Also, Instagram has been my favorite social media platform. Obviously, there's tons of other ones out there as well. I didn't go with the threads thing that also came from Instagram because my cycle was like, heck no, because I can very easily kind of get lost when I focus my attention on too many different things, even though I'm a manifesting generator. Here you go. So also, I have been doing less Facebook this year. I want to say almost nothing, very, very little, just very sporadically. I have been on there, mostly because I was part of trainings where they had a Facebook group and I had to be on there. But I actually deleted the Facebook app from my phone. Yay. That really freed up a lot of time and space for myself. And that has been big for me. So I have more focus now on Instagram because of that reason. And I don't really have a plan or a strategy with how I show up on Instagram. I still go just with the flow of my being, of my sacral, as I respond to things when I have inspiration. And obviously, sometimes I have to be honest, that can be a little bit stressful because, especially if you want to take some vacation, and this is something I have as a goal for next year because I have so much content by now. I can repurpose stuff that when I go on a vacation, what I want to do going forward, that I do pre-schedule some content. So there is still this consistency going on, even while, let's say, I'm on a 2-week vacation. Because truth to be told, there are these algorithms, and the more consistently you post, which again doesn't have to be every day, but you're gonna keep it's about keeping the momentum, right? And it's also in the gene keys, we have gene key 9 that talks a lot about it. If we just keep the momentum, we're gonna become unstoppable because invincibility occurs, right? And this is something I've also learned or noticed when I sometimes withdraw too much from Instagram, then it kind of does go back a little bit. So I think we have these days, and I use a program called Later to schedule posts, which is really beautiful. And this actually, so the technology helps me to be consistent, but I don't have to be there while I'm on vacation. I can do this in advance. So that's another thing that has worked for me really well. And then another thing in terms of consistency is I have an email newsletter. Some of you may be on there. That's really where I share most intimate my secrets or what's going on in my personal life and also in my business. So that's always the place where you will be the first to know. And I have been doing this now, I think, for 1.5 years. And one of the keys for me, because I love beauty and aesthetics, I like things to look pretty. I have discovered this amazing software, Flowdesk. They're amazing. It looks so pretty. And yeah, since then, I think it was summer 2022, I have been sending out a weekly email newsletter to my audience. And this has also tremendously helped me with being more confident in my writing, even when it comes to the writing, when it comes to my landing pages for new programs. And along with the podcast, I'm combining now the actual speaking. And also now I started also being on camera more. So this year I actually started to expand my podcast also on YouTube. I had this idea for a while. And I actually, before I started my podcast over 2 years ago, I had started a YouTube channel. It was called Analena's Wonderland. And I did several episodes. And then I totally lost my momentum. So I stopped it because I knew well enough that just forcing it is not the answer for me. So I let it be. And now, over almost 3 years later, I came back to it. And now that I have the podcast, I choose to be on there as well. And you may have seen this already. Not every single episode is also with video, because I actually just discovered or went back to a software that I used before, which is called StreamYard. That's what I'm using right now. because now they have some more functionalities that I was looking for before. And as with everything, there's the right time for certain things. And now I really feel it's the right time to use it more. Because also for the video, I was just using regular Zoom, and let's be real, it's not that pretty. I sometimes had also was sharing my screen, it was kind of iffy. So sometimes also when I do a podcast on YouTube, I even do it without the video. So that's just going to be a picture and just a voice behind, because some people, they just use YouTube more. They don't download the whole app on the phone. It does take up a lot of storage, the podcast app on phone. So that's another thing, you see. So I wasn't even aware of it, that also the podcast now grew a little bit into the YouTube world, because let's be real, this will help me over time reach more people. And that's amazing. You never know, right? So this was really for me in terms of consistency. And obviously, if you're listening to it right now, like, oh my God, Alenia, this is a lot. Having a podcast every week, having an email newsletter every week, and now also YouTube and showing up on social media, it's a lot. Now, start with one thing, right? I, in the beginning, just did Instagram. I didn't have an email newsletter. And I know many people kept telling me over and over again, you have to do this and you have to show up and da 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 da. But I wasn't ready for it. And that's okay. And then eventually, my first thing then after that was the podcast. I got into the hang of it. I created a habit with that, which tends to take at least 3 months. Hence, the Easy Podcast Launch Program is 3 months, because it does take time to get into the habit of doing something over and over again. And then, even after that, I eventually decided to do my email newsletter. So, this is also something I have in my chart, the 32, or in the Gene Keys also is called Gene Key 32, right? And this is all about, so it talks about success and failure, right? Where we kind of like, actually, this is an illusion, like nothing is really success or failure. That's kind of what we create in our mind. And also, this energy here tells us that, when I say better, reminds us that true success happens very slowly and steady. So, and I can feel this very strongly. I have this gate more than once defined in my chart, actually. And I'm this person. I have learned that when I jump onto things that are, promising these, oh my God, you're going to quantum leap overnight and everything is going to go really fast. I have learned, as a highly sensitive, empathic, introverted, beautiful human being, that doesn't feel good to my nervous system. I don't like it. And that's okay. I used to think that there's something wrong with me, but that's not my way of doing things. I'm more in for the long game. And I have decided and learned that I rather do things really slowly and consistently over time. So eventually, yeah, there will be quantum leaps, but most likely when I'm not looking for it. And if you remember, this podcast actually started, it had the name The Art of Slowing Down to Quantum Leap. I kind of dropped the quantum leap because I don't want to create the expectation, but they still happen when we slow down enough and we do what really lights us up. So, again, just a reminder, you can just pick one thing and just do the thing that lights you up the most. Don't follow what anybody else is telling you should, right? It's always what feels good and right to you, because that's how I did it. I always followed what felt good and right to me. And this is the other thing that I have been doing consistently. And obviously, there's always trial and error, and sometimes we don't do it, but it's like listening to my sacral authority. And all this means for all of you human design types is, are you listening to your body, or are you listening to other people's voices and opinions and following what the mind thinks you should do? If you're up here in the mind, that usually doesn't work well. The more I listen to my gut feeling, to my body, and especially when I make bigger decisions, I also sometimes I let it ruminate a little bit. I wait to see if it really finally clicks for me and feels right in my body. And that has been priceless. And obviously, what my sacral wants so often is very different than what my mind wants. And it hasn't always been easy, but I have to say, the more I practice, the more I do it, the more magic happens, the easier it gets, the more beautiful it is. So that's one thing I definitely recommend for all of you. Probably as the very first thing in terms of consistency, trust yourself. What does your body want? Right? What is that feeling that you have? So one thing with that as well is, it's not so easy to plan things. And something now, that's a story I want to tell you, which has a lot to do with following your sacral and planning. So, the way that this year started, 2023, I was still doing a lot of work with Miranda over at the Aligned Living Academy. Some of you may remember that. And we created amazing products. Had a lot of success, also financial success. Things went really well. We have created a beautiful human design certification and other programs and master classes. And so we actually sat down at the end of last year and we did a whole planning session. We kind of planned out what are we going to launch every month throughout the year. And at the time, it felt really good for us, you know? Now, as we started to go through the year, things started to feel off. We started to feel overwhelmed because we even felt like we put way too much onto our calendar. And really, what that created was no room whatsoever for our sacrals to respond to anything because we already had the calendar full with things that were more than enough in terms of the time and energy we wanted to put in our business. So that was a really big learning lesson, like huge for both of us. And obviously, I cannot speak for Miranda right now, but I'm going to share my experience, obviously. So I try to fix things. I try to, okay, what do we have to do differently so it's going to flow again? Because as you know, or about me, I'm all about flow and doing what feels good and most effortless. And as a manifesting generator, I got to do what really brings me joy, what lights me up. And it started to be less and less. And again, we tried to tweak things, we tried to shift things and all that stuff. And eventually, halfway through the year, I think I had this like realization that maybe it's not supposed to continue like this anymore, the business collaboration and partnership. But I didn't want to admit that to myself because deep inside I was like, no, we're gonna fail. That's not him. I cannot let her down or myself or everything, right? We created this company. But the feeling and the intuition just kept getting stronger and stronger. And also from both of us, you know, how we were responding when we spoke our truth with each other. And so, long story short, finally, I did have the courage to let it go. So the Aligned Living Academy no longer exists like we used to have it. So we're no longer creating products and services together. We are now really doing our own thing individually. And there's so many things that I'm grateful for because we did things together that I didn't have the courage to do on my own before. And I think the same for her. I think we both have really grown so much through this. We have stepped up into our own leadership and being the conscious entrepreneurs that we are. And rest assured, all the products and services that you signed up for with the Aligned Living Academy, you can find them now on my website. So everybody still has access to that. And, you know, and for Miranda and I, we just have decided it's better for both of us if we can just go with the flow of our cycles and we don't know where this is going to take us individually. So this is also to let you know that following your body, following your authority for all the human design types, it's not logical. Often it doesn't make sense. And it has very little or no room actually for people pleasing at all. Because my old self, I would have kept it up. No, I have to do it. I have to make sure, especially there was also the Aligned Living Academy had become a main source of income for both of us. And that was not easy, especially as 2-4 profiles, right? I mean, we have a strong sense of security, also financial stability there. And just letting this go from my mind was like, no, 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 don't do it. Don't do it. This is crazy, you know? But my body kept showing me over and over again that we had to let it go. So we did. And going back to the point that following your body and trusting yourself does take a lot of courage. It's not always easy. But the more you do it, you're going to see all the magic that's going to unfold from that. So I hope that's inspiring. And the other thing is also, so even how the Aligned Living Academy project, I'm going to call it now, came to a conclusion in some way, it didn't happen overnight. Just like the manifesting generator, you know, when we decide to do something or start something, especially if it's a bigger time commitment, we have, after the sacral response, we have this what we call envisioning phase. So that's why I had this gut feeling first, and I knew it has to come to an end, but I had to feel into letting it come to an end, letting it come to a conclusion. Just like when we started it, or if I start another project like the podcast here, I had the idea for a long time. And eventually there was this final, like, okay, now it's time to actually go do it. So when we start or finish things as manifesting generators, or let things come to an end, bigger things that, again, where a lot of time, energy, or money is involved on our part, we have to realize that we have this envisioning phase. And envisioning phase is literally like, get on the playground and play with it. Try it out, experiment. How does it feel? How does it feel to start it? How does it feel to let it go? And eventually you're going to have this final click moment where it's like, okay, now it's fully time to fully go in or to fully let it go. And that has also been a game changer for me, because another thing that I also started again this year is the Conscious Money Collective, which is a beautiful membership. We do all things human design, Gene Keys in there, and all things conscious money. And I had the idea for a while. And I had a membership actually 2 years ago. It was called Bloom. And that at some point didn't feel good anymore. So I stopped it. And the whole money topic kept coming up for me over and over again. And I finally was like, I just love to consistently talk about money, and I love community. And I think what I have to share is so helpful for people that I finally decided to do this membership. But I waited a long time. It wasn't, I think it was actually more than 6 months before that I said something is going to come back. And I initially wanted to do it just for manifesting generators. And then I realized that the membership is supposed to be for everyone. It's not just for ManyGens. But then I created the Art of ManyGen Magic program this summer, which was epic. It was amazing. It was a 3 months program just for manifesting generators. And this happened also out of the flow of responding to everything. I didn't have that plan at the beginning of the year, as you know, right? The plan was all different. So this was also, again, letting go of planning, following the bliss of my sacral, and really fully surrendering into that. Another thing which is super important for my business success, especially as a still recovering people pleaser, is to say no to things that are misaligned. And obviously the example I shared with you with the Aligned Living Academy was one of those. But I do get a lot of invitations, and I'm very grateful for that, to be part of summits, to be on other people's podcasts. And I had several ones where I said yes to this year, where I was in hindsight like, maybe it was a little bit too much, especially if I had two summits going on at the same time. So I will no longer do this. And I already started to be better with that. So I got actually invited for a summit at the end of January, which is all in German, which I'm super excited about. And it's already recorded and everything. But in the meantime, I think I got 2 more invitations for 2 other summits. And my sacral was a clear no, and there were even people like, I said, no, I already have some other commitments. It's too much for me. And there were even people like really being persistent, like, buddy, we really want to have you. It's only going to take so much time. But the reality is, if I'm part of a summit, it does take my time to make the recording, to put my energy into it, to put some thought in it. What is the message that I want to deliver? And then also it usually involves sharing a freebie, some kind of content, and I have to market it as well. Share my social media, send out emails to my email list. And I'm very discerning what I'm sending to my email list. I don't want to overflow my people with too much stuff. I do have my weekly newsletter, and here and there, I also share things when I promote them. I do that, but I don't want to overdo it. So, plus my sacral was a no. So I kept like, no, it's a no. And I can still tell you that there's still a part of me that there's this fear of rejection often coming up. Like, I know people are not going to like me and I should have done it. Or the ego is kicking in and telling me, like, well, it's going to be a missed opportunity. You should do it. But again, my body is like, no. And I have started to notice now that when I have the courage to say no to these things, something way better, really fast, is just right around the corner. And sometimes the best side effect of this is as well that I have some space for creativity. And creativity is something that's huge for me. So when I have too many things on my plate, which again for the ego may feel really good, people want me there, it's amazing, they like me, and I'm busy. But again, I have very little space to just be and go inward and tune into like, what is a new baby, like a program I want to birth, I want to put out into the world. So that's on another note for that. And oh, yeah, another really good one is how I launch has changed as well. And I obviously have played with that for quite some years. And I have taken all these courses in the past, right? Like in the beginning, I learned, like, okay, do Facebook ads. That wasn't my cup of tea at all. And then it was like, oh, I have this Facebook group and 5-day free challenge, and then launch from that, and all those kind of ideas. And I just have learned that for myself, just along the lines of this podcast, The Art of Slowing Down, I really enjoy and I'm mostly successful with slow launches. What does that mean? So, when I now launch a masterclass, and I have done many this year, I give myself on average 2 weeks to actually launch the masterclass, because there are some days where I don't want to share anything. I just don't feel like it. And there are other days where I want to talk a lot about it. And I have found that also my audience is very much like me. You guys are not on social media every single day. Sometimes you take 2, 3 days off, and it can easily happen. If you just have something super amazing and you only have it out for 3 days to launch, people may miss it. And then they're going to be like, oh, bummer. I really wanted to take this masterclass. So that's what I have found really works well for me. And I mean, here and there, right now, for example, I have a masterclass. It's called the Conscious Money Mindset and Manifestation. It's a human design and Jinkies masterclass, actually happening on Wednesday, the 27th of December, and it's free for all members of the Conscious Money Collective. If you're not in there, you can get in there still now if it's before the 27th. And once you're a member, you're going to also get access to the masterclass, or you just sign up for the masterclass. The link is also going to be in the show notes. And if you watch this later, you can also access it once we have the replay in there. But this is like game changing, life changing stuff that I have learned are so helpful for me in my business and also in my personal life, when it comes to money. So, and for programs, so when I launched the Art of Managing Magic this year, which was a program only for manifesting generators, I think I gave myself 4 or 5 weeks for that. And I'm doing the same right now for the Easy Podcast launch as well, because especially right now, it's the holidays, it's the end of the year, things are going to be slow. I'm not going to put something out there that's going to start the first week of January, right? I want to kind of give it some time also for people to feel into it, if that program is going to align for them. If they have questions, they can reach out to me. But I'm not doing anything anymore from pressure and doing fast. Oh my God, the money has to come in and all of that stuff. No. So that has worked really well for my nervous system. If you like that, give it a try. It's pretty awesome. Yeah. Yeah, I already mentioned the Conscious Money Collective membership as part of being more consistent as well. And this is also something that I personally love in terms of stability when it comes to money, because when you have a membership, you have some recurring revenue come in every month. And my nervous system really likes it. It really loves it, because without the membership, I would literally be in a place of like, okay, I have no idea where my money every month is coming in. It's always going to be different, right? And while I also love the unexpected and the surprises and going with the flow of my sacral, I also love that there's one part now in my business that has some really nice consistency and like a steady flow of money in one part, right? I also have started this year, and again, this didn't come from planning or strategizing how to create another income flow, but I started to use this amazing little, I don't have it here right now actually, but the Healy, it's a little microcurrent frequency device from a company in Germany. And I first just used it to use it for myself, and I really love it. I use it almost daily, and I really feel it has supported me a lot also in my business, and also for my well-being in my physical human body. And I have done some other episodes about that if you're interested. There's also some content on my Instagram as well. But long story short, anytime where I really love something, I can really stand behind, I share it with people. Because, hey, if it can change my life and I really feel like it's improving my life, I feel like I'm being of disservice not to share it. So I started to talk about it here and there, and I started to sell. some devices through my affiliate link. And now I have to say I've come to a place where there has also some additional money coming in from that source as well that I totally didn't expect at the beginning of the year. And this is also something I'm looking to build more out in the coming year. But again, it was from zero pressure. It was from no expectations, simply from sharing something that I truly believe can be of service to people. Plus, I know that I always guide people to make decisions in a way that is aligned with the human design. So, if it's not for you, it's not for you, and that's totally okay. So I don't have this attachment to that at all. And I have to say that has worked, yeah, pretty well. So that's another thing. And one more thing I want to talk about is investing into myself. So when I started my journey over 5 years ago, I was very much into this like, oh my God, these people have the answer. They know how to run a successful business. I need to buy their course. And I really overinvested. I overinvested a lot in the beginning. So much so that I still have a lot on credit cards and some debt to pay off. And I used to feel ashamed for that for a long time. But I also learned at some point, you know what? These are all learning lessons. Everything happens for a reason. And this is now stuff that I can share with you guys so you don't make those mistakes, or in the end of the day, it's learning lessons. And while I was for a very long time in this over investing in my business, what has really shifted this year in particular is that I stopped doing that. I have really learned that anytime when I invest into something from this place of like, they know something that I don't know, I always get disappointed and I come to the realization I know everything. I just need to trust myself. And yeah, sometimes, when I have this sacral, where I'm signing up for a program or course or masterclass or some coaching, even a one-on-one session. I had several ones those this year with astrologers and brand strategists, for example. It was from pure joy and pure, my body just wanted it. But it wasn't from this like, I cannot do it without it. You see what I'm saying? So it's not about going all extreme. I'm not going to invest into anything, and the other extreme would be like totally over investing it. I feel like I'm coming into like a equilibrium with everything where I'm much more discerning with what is actually serving me to invest in myself. So that has been also really big for me because now I'm like, okay, if I don't have the money for it, then it's not going to happen. That's okay. I'm no longer in this like, oh, I have to put it yet on another credit card because that in the long term is not sustainable for me. And I'm more in a phase right now where when there's surplus of money coming in, that's going to be to pay off some debt. And I also have learned that instead of investing into a coach that I may not really need, when it comes from ego and this thing I needed, I much rather invest it into some vacation or more for my personal pleasure. Because the more I have that in my personal life, the more I'm going to thrive in my business as well. So that's also something I personally had to learn and I'm still working on. And again, not to say that coaching and programs, I mean, obviously that's the business and I'm myself. And there's a place and there's a time for one-on-one coaching. There's a place and a time for master classes and programs, but you will know that in your body. And I'm always here to support you and guide you, make your soul aligned decisions for yourself. So that also was this big learning lesson for me. So when I first started my journey as a coach, and that I always thought that whatever people say is the truth. Like there were people like, oh, if you're not investing high ticket, you cannot sell high ticket. I started to believe that, you know, and then until I met a coach that I work with myself, that was like literally making 6, 7 figures, selling high ticket one-on-one coaching and everything, and shared truthfully that she didn't work with any coach, just here and there had like an energy healing session and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, okay. So I had to hear another perspective for me to shift my belief. And now, over the years of hearing all these different stories, it's like whatever you believe is true. If you believe that you can only be having a successful business if you're going to invest at least 10K every month, then that's, yeah. But if you believe like I can have a freaking successful business without having a one on one coach, then you can do that. And you will know what's right for you. For some people, it's super aligned to have a one-on-one coach and make an investment that's going to stretch them a little bit. For others, it's going to be detrimental for the nervous system. They're going to super contract and it's going to push them back a lot. So I invite you to check in. What is your truth and what belief is actually serving you, and especially your nervous system? That's so important. Yeah, because with money, there's always, I find these extremes, and I'm now in a place where I want to claim more to allow even more money to come into my life, because I was for a very long time in the beginning, I was always like, money is what I'm after, money is what I'm after, right? So I think I was a little bit in this, my self-worth is tied to money. I had to let that go. That took me a lot of work and a lot of, realizations along the way. And but then we can also kind of push money away if we are kind of saying like, oh, but wanting money is a bad thing because it's greed. Yeah, can get into greed, but if we are sacrificing ourselves and doing everything for free and saying like, no, I don't like money or whatever, I mean, at least in my case, I'm lying to myself as well. So it's about having that balance where it's not the money we are after, and my self-worth is not tied at all to how much money I have in my bank account or what I'm making or whatsoever, but where I'm also allowing myself to be really financially supported, where it's not just to get by. It's like to pay the bills, it's to do the things that really bring me pleasure, perhaps also to invest into my future, eventually for retirement at some point, right? So I'm more right now personally in this space of like, okay, I can actually expand here a little bit and allow myself to even receive more money. And this year has been good, where I have been allowing much more consistent money flow into my life. The years before, I had more high highs and low lows, so to say. So this year has been more nicely balanced. I'm also really proud of it for myself. So I want to finish this episode with the current transit, which is, so the sun is kind of for the last week of the year is going to be in gate 58. And I think then we're going to move for the new year into 38. So gate 58, and I want to actually share this with you guys because now with this awesome StreamYard thing, I can do this. So this is my chart, so my gene keys. So as you can see, my SQ and my gene keys is this gene key 58. So this is kind of the core of who I am. It's the center of my universe in a way. And you will see in your human design chart, your SQ is your unconscious Venus, just so you can kind of see where this is coming from. And this energy, so I'm going to talk about the shadow first. The shadow is always the seed for the gift to arise and come out, so to say. And the shadow is dissatisfaction. And this dissatisfaction we have, especially in business, but we always, and there's pressure. It comes off. So this gate 58 comes off the root center. This is a pressure center, and I have an undefined root, so I have really felt this a lot. It tends to be more challenging when we have a gate and an undefined center, from my experience and what I have been seeing with other people as well. So it's this constant seeking, right? Like, who has the answers? We have to constantly improve everything. It's never good enough. And we're never satisfied with what is. And really, what this is like we're constantly living in the future. And we're not really allowing ourselves to be in the present moment. And as you know, most of the spiritual teachings, especially if you think about Eckhart Tolle, the power of now, Buddhism, Zen, and all these things, it's all about being present in this very moment and being content with that. So that is not easy for so many of us. We're always like, okay, where's the money gonna come from, right? There's a lot of this pressure coming from, obviously, because we also have this need for survival, obviously, and we need money to get by in this world and thrive as well. So the beautiful thing with this particular gene key is, which is very rare, usually every gene key has a repressive side of the shadow, which is more introverted, and also a reactive side. Now, this is the only gene key in the entire gene keys, or the 64 gates or 64 gene keys, that only has a reactive side. Because what comes out of this shadow is the gift of vitality. And so we humans, if we were to internalize this, like the vitality would die, like we humans literally would disappear. So the reactive is like we're always reacting to the dissatisfaction we have. And it's also, Richard Wright mentioned that it's actually in a way a positive shadow, because from our constant dissatisfaction, we have been improving. And all the things you see in the world, like even this technology here right now, it came from a dissatisfaction with the status quo, and we keep improving. We make things better, right? If you just look into the world of what we have created in medicine and technology, and I mean, all these things, it's incredible. It's incredible. All these inventions that have been made. So this is actually a very positive shadow in a way, but obviously it's also part of it's called the colon ring of seeking, where it's always this like we keep seeking and seeking and seeking, and we are never happy and content and satisfied with what is, right? So the key here is to allow yourself to have and experience joy with what is in the present moment, and realize that what really brings us dissatisfaction is this constant seeking, right? Always like it's always more, something else, and we can never really appreciate what we have. And so for me and my business, I have also noticed that the more I can just have fun with what I have, really enjoy what I'm currently doing, where I'm really immersed in this very moment, just like I'm recording this podcast right now, actually enjoying it and having fun, because that's really what being of service is, right? When I am with my vitality, with my joy and my being, I can share my gifts and I can have fun with that, but when I do it from a place of like, I have to accomplish something or have to seek something or I have to deliver something to people, right? That's a very pressured place and it's not a lot of fun. And that actually then drains my vitality. And what's also beautiful, so every gene key has what we call a programming partner. And the programming partner of the 58 is the 52. And the 52, so the shadow of the 52 is stress. So they're tied together. And this also, the 52, I don't have it defined, but it's also coming off the root center if you have it in your chart. And just so you know, this is relevant for all of us, because even with the transits right now, if you have those gates defined, it's going to be more familiar to you. If you have it undefined, you kind of experience it through others and your environment as well, but it does apply to all of us. So the 52, that means basically the shadow of stress will feed the dissatisfaction, right? It's this pressure, and yeah, we're not happy with what is. We always feel like we have to create something new or do something different, or we have to push and hustle. And the more dissatisfied we become. And the gift, so the gift of the 58, like I said, is vitality, where you do what you love and you feel deeply satisfied. And this is also interesting because in human design, we only talk about satisfaction for generators and manifesting generators. But guess what? It applies to all of us, supposed to be satisfied. And the gift of the 52 is stillness. Again, slowing down always comes back to that. So the more we can just be and be still and connect to our heart, if that's through walking outside or meditation or anything that brings a sense of stillness into your life, that will also feed your vitality. How beautiful is that? But if we could just keep rushing and letting the pressure rule our life and our business, especially as manifesting generators, where we're already like all over the place sometimes anyways, it just turns into this vicious cycle where we get more stressed and we're always just chasing the next thing, and we're never really there with what we're doing in this present moment. And the key is that the more we are in the stillness and the vitality and the gift of these two energies, the more we're actually also being of service, and that will bring us this satisfaction. When you're being of service in a way where you're just doing the thing that comes easy to you, you share your gifts and your talents with the world, and like I'm doing it right now, right? And just trusting that it will reach the right people and it will be of service. The flip side is where we are like, I have to be of service, I have to make money. And we're kind of in this pushing and trying to make things happen. And also from being dissatisfied with the status quo in some way. So these are just some thoughts for inspiration to leave you with. And yeah, this week, this energy is going to be in the sun. So the sun is going to be in 58 and the earth is going to be in 52. So again, it's going to be relevant for all of us. And just see, how can you cultivate more stillness in your life? What really brings you satisfaction? What is bringing you vitality? Where you have a spark in your eyes and you just love doing it, just for doing it, not to get a certain outcome. So this is something that I have to remind myself over and over again as well. It's definitely a process. And I invite you to do the same. I hope this episode left some glimmers of inspiration for yourself. And I am very excited to dive into the new year with all of you. There's lots of exciting things coming, which I haven't all planned for now. Like I said, the Easy Podcast launch that is happening at the beginning of January 25th. We're going to start. Again, it's all going to be in the show notes, and anything else that will come, you will hear from me. I will let myself be surprised with my sacred response to and take you on this blissful journey with me. So, sending you so much love and light to enjoy this last week of this year. Also, invite you to set some intentions. First, like, what is something you want to let go of, right? What is something that you have learned this year that you know is not serving you? And then, from this place of releasing that, what is something that you would like to embody more this next year? And maybe it's just one little thing. And if you were to just focus on that continuously and keep doing it over and over again, it could really create a beautiful ripple effect for yourself. So take this time to reflect, enjoy the holidays, enjoy your family, your loved ones, whoever you spend it with. And I'm sending you all my love, all my blessings. And I'm excited to be with you in the next year for the next episode. Bye, everyone.